Because really, whether it was the market crash, whether it was the real estate crash, whether it was 2008, how many more bad memories can I bring up for folks watching this? Everybody, we don't, I don't, I'm not a prude. I just don't really drink. I mean, it's just kind of personal choice. But I'm telling you, everybody on the show right now is going to grab a fifth of Jack because they're remembering 2008 or they're twitching. But so the interesting part is bring up the fact that God kind of smacked you over the head. And it goes back to, before we get into your turning point, it goes back to a story I tell, a very quick one about the feather and the 2x4. God will tickle you with a feather, or God, the universe, or whatever higher power you believe in will tickle you with a feather if they don't think you're moving in the right direction. If you don't laugh and change direction, eventually they're going to get tired of it and they're going to take a big 2x4 and smack you upside the head. And they will continue to do it until you figure out that you're in the wrong direction. Now, hey, God's a loving God. The universe is great and everything. They don't really want to hurt you, but sometimes you just got to go, get with the program. So you're kind of smacking the head. Was it completely the real estate crash, or were there other things going on? I mean, you said it almost like there was cracks forming because you had realized you weren't fulfilled and everything. Did that realization come before or after the crash?
Well, it came before, but I didn't have a plan or know what to do about it. So I knew it, while I was successful and making a lot of money. I was a little like, but when you're successful and you're making a lot of money, you figure, well, it's that's cool. I can sell this business, or I can. You figure that there's another way out of it. At the moment, I wasn't taking any steps in that direction, but you figure, well, you make enough money, you can invest in another business and try something new, right? Having money gives you options. But it just didn't happen that way for me. It happened in a very different way for me.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up money gives you options, and I think that it sounds like one of the things our viewers can take away from that is the fact that even if they're ultra successful right now, and even if they think money gives them options, if they have that yearning, that something else inside them, they ought to start putting a plan in place to make it happen. I mean, looking back on it, and I hate to say wish, because wish is such a blocking thing, and it's like next time. Would you say that next time you would do it a little bit differently and listen to that voice inside of you?
Well, I did. And that's part of the turnaround story, because when things turned around, I actually, because financially, I went from making a lot of money to closing my business.
Yeah.
I had to kind of get back on track and chase the money for a while in this new field, new for me. But then I found myself very, very quickly right back to, this is not fulfilling, this is just a very similar thing. And I was able to say, okay, how do we transition out of that to something that I really love? And so yeah, would I do it differently? I did. So yeah, I would if I had an opportunity. It would have been cool, would have loved the opportunity, because then maybe I would have been able to get started faster. It wouldn't have been as painful. But yeah, I would do it differently.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I watched a guy when I was working in corporate America. I watched a guy who, right before it crashed in 2008, decided to move everything out. My famous comment to him was, "Don't worry, the market's going to come back." Yeah, yeah. I'm still paying for that. I'm still paying for that comment. But from your standpoint, it sounds like you went through, during your turning point period, it sounds like you went through a couple of humps and almost like a little, an up and down type of time. It sounds like the market crash, you had issue, you shut the business down, you got started into something else, and then I'm not saying you came back down, but it's kind of like you got out of it very quickly. I mean, am I hearing that right?
Yeah, not very quickly. I mean, a few years,
okay.
But because we're going all the way back to 2007-8, so. I mean, when I think of down, I think of closing my business, and not much compares with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the turning point wasn't so much down. This was my trajectory, and then I kind of hit a plateau, and then I took it to the next kind of level in what I'm doing now. That's probably the way I would classify it, especially looking back at 07 and 08.
Yeah, nothing compares to when you have that true. It's funny because, when you have that really downtime, nothing compared. Nothing, even a slight down doesn't ever compare to it again, right?
Right. Totally. Totally.
And you were saying something before about, people joke around about, oh, geez, I'd like to have that problem about, having a lot of money and
Right.
not be satisfied. I, how can I put this? What share with our audience. I think it'd be really valuable because I think every time somebody's ultra successful and they have that really down time, share with our audience, whether it's during the turning point or before, how that really changed your perspective on success and on money and on everything else.
Yeah, how it changed my perspective. The only hesitation is I'm not sure that it changed my perspective, but certainly it did wake me up to the immediate importance of, for me as an individual, there are things that I just can't be personally satisfied with, like internally. Like internally, things have to be right, and the money doesn't fix that, and the stuff doesn't fix that. There has to be stuff internally right. I've always known that, but as you start making more and more money, the things maybe that you wake up to are, you don't want to just. I don't want to just think of my life as, well, 8 hours a day I do this. This is my job, my job, and then I can go on and really live my purpose or make the kind of impact that I want to make. I've always wanted those things to be the same, no matter how much money I made. But of course, you don't know that until you're making a lot of money. So the change in perspective for me was when I did make a lot of money, I was like, oh, wow, so I'm still not really fired up with what I'm doing.
And I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand. I remember the quick story is I remember when I first got into corporate America, my goal was to be the CEO of a company. And when I left corporate America and I formed, one of my incorporated companies, I was elected CEO, and literally I hung up the phone and I went, "This is all it is." And you have this perspective, whether it's money, whether it's power, you have this perspective of what it's going to mean and how it's going to change your life. And only after you achieve it and realize, yeah, it's not everything the world, everything the world says or everything was cracked up to be, only then do you realize, why you need to stay true to your core. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. And that's why people should listen to people who, like you, who had money before, who lost it all, and really now, realize that they have to fill that bucket, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
so you got to the turning point, and now we're going to stretch into the aftermath.
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.